And welcome, sports fans, to today's Roundtable. Glad you joined us here on Channel 21 on your new wave cable, also online at yhctv.com and Facebook Live, as we are winding down the fall sports season, and the best moments are yet to come here as we just finished the regular season of high school football last night throughout the area, heading into district tournament play next week. So some teams going to be making runs at district tournaments starting next week. And we've got another couple weeks of high school football regular season down in Arkansas, which we'll talk more about a little later as well. So coming down to the end here, we've had some big volleyball matchups here this week, and also heading into district tournament play this next week in high school volleyball, and also high school softball and state tournament play. We're going to touch on that as well here in just a few moments. So the fall sports season winding down. That means district tournaments at stake here, and even state tournament play here coming up as well over the next few weeks. So very exciting time for the fall sports season, but the bitter side of that as well, that seasons will be coming to an end after next week in high school football and the other sports, as well as teams will be moving on, and others, their seasons will be ending. So we'll see what happens over the next few weeks, but a lot taking place this last week going into last night, and taking a look at the games from last night and in high school football, and a game that we brought to you live here on YHC last night from Portageville. It was Hayti over Portageville in a shutout, 60-0, and the Hayti Indians roll once again over the Portageville Bulldogs last night, and that's been pretty much routine for the Hayti Indians this year, as they rolled 60-0 over the Portageville Bulldogs. And talking to Al Jackson last night, famous statistician for Boot Hill Sports, Hayti averaging over 50 points a game. I think they're at 54, so their average might have got pushed up a point to about 55 last night, and only giving up 6 points a game, and now it takes their average down to maybe 4 points a game, 5 points a game after last night. So impressive season by Hayti. We'll talk more about them going forward in our next segment, but dominant victory last night in that game we brought to you here on YHC down in Portageville. And also Dexter getting a nice road victory at the Swamp against Malden last night. It was literally a swamp with all the rain last night, and Dexter getting that road victory, 34-0 over the Green Wave, and it's been probably been a good amount of time since Dexter's beat Malden. Malden's had a great run over the last 5 years and lost a lot of from last year's team, suffering that loss to Dexter, but Dexter getting a nice road victory, much needed win last night for the Bearcats, and they got it in a shutout victory, 34-0 over the Green Wave. Also, we got Kennett over Sikeston. Kennett defeated Sikeston 23-14. Nice win for the Kennett Indians as they defeat Sikeston 23-14. That was one of their toughest games of the year, as they've had a very good season down in Kennett this season. Bolivar over Cape Central, 41-21. Cape Central continuing to struggle this year. They go to 1-8 on the year. Certainly a tough season for the Cape Central Tigers, as they've had a really good run as well over the last handful of years. And just a down year for the Tigers, taking that loss to Bolivar last night. Crothersville over New Madrid County Central, 34-8 in that SEMO conference matchup. SEMO Central, I believe that is. SEMO Central and Crothersville getting a nice victory over New Madrid County Central. And New Madrid's had a pretty good year, just a tough conference opponent against Crothersville. And Crothersville getting that win last night. Kelly over Chaffee, 41-0. And Kelly's really put together a fine season this year. We'll talk more about them in our next segment, talking about their season, and an impressive victory for the Kelly Hawks over Chaffee. Chaffee struggling this year. They've had a down year. And Kelly actually putting together a fine program there in their youthful program up there in Kelly. And Charleston over Herculaneum, 52-6. And Charleston's really put together a fine season. I think they've only got one loss on the year. And I can't remember who that goes back to. It might go back to Sikeston, I believe. I can't remember. I don't want to quote myself on that, but Charleston only one loss on the year. Very fine season, and kind of out of nowhere, Charleston football struggled over the last couple of years, and they've really put together a fine season this year. East Prairie over Fredericktown, 32-22. East Prairie getting a nice victory over the Fredericktown Black Cats last night. Jackson over Parkway Central, 42-0. And Jackson putting together a fine season, and they remain undefeated on the year with that victory over Parkway Central. Poplar Bluff over Hillsboro. Poplar Bluff struggling a bit this year, especially from the previous few years, and they got a nice victory, 30-14 over Hillsboro last night. So impressive victory for the Mules, and that victory over the Hillsboro Hawks. Scott City over Donovan in a shutout, 42-0. And take a look at some high school volleyball from the past few days. Last night, Advance over Woodland in the Stoddard County Conference, and they win that in 2 straight sets. And going back earlier this week, Notre Dame defeating Jackson in the SEMO Conference Tournament Championship in 2 straight sets. Very competitive conference this year in the SEMO Conference in volleyball, and Notre Dame comes out on top of that tournament championship over Jackson in 2 straight sets. And that's the big action that's taking place over the last few days. And take a look at the replay of the Hayti-Portageville game. You can watch that replay coming up later on tonight, Saturday at 6, and then also Sunday at 4, Sunday afternoon at 4, and then Monday at 10 a.m. And the live stream is available on our website at yhctv.com and Facebook, or Facebook timeline. You can watch that anytime there, and we will get a produced version of that contest up later on today, probably Saturday evening of Hayti and Portageville. So you can go watch the live stream edition on our website at yhctv.com, or Facebook timeline, and even YouTube on our YouTube page. But we will get a produced version, higher quality produced version on our website at yhctv.com later Saturday evening. And we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to take a look at the headlines from last night in high school football and other sports in the area, notably softball and the state tournament play. And we're going to come back with those headlines coming up.
A Glen Saint story. A few years ago, a good friend of ours ran for a state legislative office. The night of the election, Gail and I had some friends and family over. Our friend won. His young son looked at him and said, "Dad, since you won, does that mean you can make duck season longer?" That's a good story. Best price, best service. Glen Saint, God bless our troops.
For the best service in air conditioning, it's AirTech Heating and Air in Dexter. They service both commercial and residential customers and provide additional services including plumbing, electrical, and appliance repair. AirTech is a Carrier factory authorized dealer, and currently Carrier is offering cool cash rebates, providing you extra savings towards a new AC unit. Has served the area as a family business since 1960, now led by NATE certified Jason Johnson. He holds the highest certification in the heating, cooling, and refrigeration industry. Call today to get the expert service of AirTech in Dexter.
And welcome back, and take a look at some headlines from last night and or actually the last few days in sports action here in the area. Take a look at last night. Actually, let's look ahead to college or high school softball in the state tournament for this weekend. In the Class 2 quarterfinals, East Carter County will take on Montgomery County. That'll be today, Saturday at 3 p.m. I think that's taking place over at the Three Rivers College campus in Poplar Bluff. Big Class 2 quarterfinal between the East Carter County Lady Redbirds and Montgomery County. The winner will advance on to the state Final Four in high school softball for the state of Missouri. So East Carter in a big game later on this afternoon at 3 o'clock. And also in the Class 3 quarterfinals, it is Hillsboro versus Notre Dame. That's taking place today, Saturday at 1 p.m. And I believe that's up at Notre Dame high school campus. Hillsboro versus Notre Dame in the Class 3 girls softball quarterfinals, and also that winner will advance on to the Final Four in high school girls softball in the semifinals. So Notre Dame in a big game, as well as East Carter County in high school softball. And take a look at the games from last night throughout the area. Hayti extends its undefeated season with that win over Portageville last night, and they are ranked number 1 in the state in Class 1. Last week they got up to the number 1 ranking and hold that going into this week, and we'll talk about those state rankings coming up in just a bit. But Hayti, as I said in the opening statement, they're averaging over, I think, 54 points a game, and probably now 5 to 6 points a game after that shutout last night. Just an unbelievable season by the Hayti Indians, and well favored in their district, even including Valley Catholic in there. Valley Catholic having, I think, 2 or 3 losses on the year. I don't think Hayti is really going to have much competition in their Class 1 district, and probably looking into state tournament play, probably deep into state tournament play before they're going to run into some decent competition. But just an unbelievable team this year. The unbelievable speed they have on both sides of the ball. I know Ivory Winters is really, the big-time player, but they've got a bunch of players. So much speed across the defense and the offense. As good as the offense is, and pretty much scoring at will they do on offense, their defense is probably more impressive. Looking at that game, you'll see in the replay, Portageville drops back to pass, and it seems like before they even get to the back of their drop, they got 2 defenders in the backfield trying to make the sack, and they swarm tackle with the best here in Southeast Missouri, and just an unbelievable season, unbelievable talent collectively across the board. Seems like 11 on offense and defense are making plays, open up holes on offense. That's the thing about their offense. If they can get to the edge, get up the field, you can't stop them. But not only that, they can cut it upfield, work inside the tackles, and open up the holes to get deep down the field. Working between the tackles as well. So just a very good season for the Hayti Indians so far, and haven't really been tested one bit so far this year. Averaging over 54 points, only giving up about 6, and just unbelievable season, and really looking forward to see what the Hayti Indians put together going forward. It's been an exciting season, probably one to remember for all time for the Hayti Indians this year. And also the Kelly Hawks. We talked about the Kelly Hawks defeating Chaffee last night, and they got an undefeated shutout victory over the Chaffee Red Devils last night, and they have secured their first winning season. First winning season in the young Kelly Hawk program. I think they introduced that program maybe 4 to 5 years ago. And with any young program, any young varsity program that starts, it's going to be stumbles out of the gate. Kids just getting introduced to football, especially at the varsity level, when you haven't had it in your program's history or school's history at all, like Helly has. And they've introduced that program. They took their lumps early. The first couple of years, I think they had a couple winless seasons, and now getting their first winning season in probably just a handful of years. Says a lot about the Kelly program and the way it's come in the first handful of years it's been in existence. And I think they go to 5-3 on the year, I believe. So even with a loss next week, they will end their season with a winning record. So congratulations to Kelly, securing their first winning season in their young varsity program. Also, let's talk about the Kenan Indians. They finished their season 8-1, and with that victory over Sykeston last night, 23-14. Their only loss coming to Gosnell out of Northeast Arkansas, and I think they were about 12-point loss, I think, or around that, to Gosnell in week 2 of the season. So they are undefeated against Missouri opponents this season, and they're having a fine season as well. They lost a lot of talent from last year, a lot of skill position players from last year's team, but they've got some underclassmen playing at a high level this year, and they really made up for those losses they had last year due to graduation. And look out for the Kenan Indians. They're going to look to contend for a district tournament title this year. They will be the number one seed in their district tournament going into next week, and they slipped into the top 10 rankings this week. This week's poll had them at number 10 in Class 3, so they sneak into the top 10 poll, which I thought they might with an undefeated season here in Missouri. and I thought they really had a good chance of sneaking into that top 10 before the season ended. And with the last regular season poll, they snuck in with that number 10 ranking in Class 3 this week. So very good season put together by the Kenyon Indians, coached by Joel White and his staff. They've done a great job developing the young talent to come in and contribute at a high level this year. So look out for the Kenyon Indians heading into district tournament play. They're going to be having a good shot at having a chance at that district title. They'll have home field advantage throughout the Class 3 District 1 playoffs. So we'll see what happens for the Kenyon Indians going forward. And the Jackson Indians complete their undefeated season with that 42-0 victory over Parkway Central last night. And Jackson's had a couple years now, going back to last year, winning a district title and dropping to Vianney in the quarterfinal. Looks like they're going to have another shot at another district title this year and into state tournament play. And Jackson Indians looking good once again this season. And the Dexter Bearcats finished their season at a record of 4-4. They finished 500. They had a bye week, so only 8-game regular season for the Dexter Bearcats. Finished at 4-4, and with that shutout victory over Malden last night in the Swamp. There in Malden, 34-0 victory over Malden. So Dexter finishing pretty strong with 2 victories going back to last week. Park Hill Central at home, as we brought that game to you last week here on YHC. Hard-fought victory against Park Hill Central, and finishing with a road victory over Malden. So the Dexter Bearcats putting together a fine year. Looking at their schedule, they got some tough opponents on the schedule, and finishing at 4-4 for the year for the Bearcat football team. And take a look at volleyball. As we mentioned, Notre Dame wins the SEMO Conference Tournament Championship over Jackson. Hard-fought conference this year, and Notre Dame actually had to come back after some early losses in the tournament to secure that SEMO Conference Tournament Championship. 1 in 2 sets over the Jackson Lady Indians for that SEMO Conference title. So congratulations to the Notre Dame volleyball team. As we will be entering into district play, I think this next week we're into district tournament play throughout the area, classes 1 through, I think, 4 in volleyball. So we'll be looking forward to that taking place this next week in high school volleyball. And as we've touched on the games, let's go ahead and touch on the district standings. These are final standings, with the exception of a few class districts here. There are some games taking place today, Saturday afternoon, which will probably have some impact on the points for the district tournaments going into week. So let's take a look at the district tournaments as they will look going into next week. In the Class 1 District 1 standings, no surprise, the Hayti Indians on top at number 1 with over 54 points, undefeated 9-0. They will take on Crystal City in the first round next week. They will host Crystal City in the first round of the Class 1 District 1 tournament. Valley Catholic at number 2 will host Chaffee in the first round. Scott City coming in at 3rd, finishing the season at 7-2. Pretty nice year for the Scott City Rams. They will host the Portageville Bulldogs next week in the first round, and they matched up earlier in the year. Scott City defeated Portageville 42-19 in that game down in Portageville a few weeks back. So they've already played this year, so we'll see what happens there. And Brentwood, the 4 seed, will host St. Vincent for that last first round game, and the top 4 seeds there will host the first round games. And as I said, Hayti will be the heavy favorite in that one, even over Valley. Valley having losses to Crothersville and St. Genevieve this year. And Hayti didn't have any problem with Crothersville. Actually, I think last week, or going back a few weeks. So look out for the Hayti Indians, probably to roll in that Class 1 District 1. And in Class 2 District 1, Charleston putting together a fine season this year. Only 1 loss. They finish at 8-1 on the year, and the top overall seed, they jump Jefferson. Jefferson was number 1 last week, and Charleston jumped them after a win last night, and they come down pretty close there, as you see, 47.47 to 46.69, so less than 1 point come down to, and Charleston jumps Jefferson to secure the top overall seed. They will host Malden in the first round next week at Charleston. In the Class 2 District 1 tournament in the first round, Jefferson will host East Prairie. And the 3 seed Crothersville Tigers will host New Madrid County Central, as they just played last night. So they'll have a rematch next week in Crothersville. And St. Pius, the 10th out of Festus, will host Kelly in that first round game. And Kelly finishing the year 6-3. I actually said 5-3, but actually finished 6-3, as Kelly will take on St. Pius next week to maybe to pull off a little upset there on the road in Festus, taking on St. Pius. And the Class 3 District 1, Kennett on top at number 1, finishing the year at 8-1, nearly 50 points. St. Genevieve coming in at second at 7-2. So Kennett will host Doniphan next week in the first round of the Class 3 District 1 tournament. St. Genevieve will host Fredericktown. And coming in third is Park Hill Central, finishing the year at 4-5. And they will host Perryville. But there is a caveat to this here. Perryville's at number 6. As you see, they're at 3-5. They do have a game this afternoon against Sumner. And Sumner is... Sumner only has 1 victory on the year, I believe. I think it's what the record showed. So Perryville, a win by Perryville over Sumner this afternoon, Saturday afternoon, will likely put them over Dexter. As you see there, it's really close. Dexter's at 28.34, and Perryville's at 27.31. So there's a point separating in there, but I think if Perryville defeats Sumner, they will likely jump Dexter, because coming into this week, Perryville was ahead of Dexter. Perryville was at that number 5 slot. Dexter was at number 6. And Dexter got a victory over Malden, which is a class lower, so it's really not going to help them out in the points, which Perryville playing Sumner, a victory there. I think Sumner is actually a class 4 school, if I'm not mistaken, so Perryville will get the points there, certainly with a victory and even a bigger school. So they will likely go up to that number 5 spot with a victory, most certainly. So Dexter's at number 5, but a good shot, a good chance that they will actually be at number 6, which they come into the week as. There in the Class 3 District 1. So if these things hold, Park Hills will host Perryville, but it's likely going to be Park Hills Central hosting Dexter. The 3 versus 6, Park Hills Central hosting Dexter, but Dexter defeated Park Hills Central last week at Dexter, and only this time it goes to Park Hills for that district tournament game. So that'll be an interesting matchup there if Dexter can pull off that victory against Park Hills on the road. We'll see what happens there. Should be interesting. Potosi will host likely Perryville for that 4-5 matchup. So we'll see what happens. It's going to be a very, very interesting district there. As you see there, Park Hills at that number 3 slot, only 4-5 on the year, with Dexter possibly pulling up an upset next week. But it's up there in Park Hills. We'll see if home field advantage has any effect there, but we'll see. Should be an interesting Class 3 district tournament this season. Class 4 District 1, West Plains on top at number 1, undefeated, finishing 9-0 on the year, nearly 56 points. Farmington coming in second at 6-3. So West Plains will host Cape Central, who's really struggled this year, finished at 1-8. Cape Central used to seeing them at the top of the district, but coming in last this year. West Plains will host Cape Central. Farmington will host Hillsboro in that 2-7 game. Festus, the 3rd seed, will host 6th-seeded DeSoto. 4th-seeded North County will host Sykeston. So Sykeston is going to have to go on the road and take on North County in that 4-5 game. And North County having a pretty good year this year as well. So we'll see what happens there, as Sykeston and Cape Central will have to go on the road for their district tournament games. And in Class 5 District 1, Fox leapfrogs Jackson for that top overall seed. Fox finishes the year at 9-1 and the 8-1, excuse me, and the Jackson Indians finished undefeated. They've been number 1 pretty much all year, including coming into this week's game. Jackson was at the number 1 spot, but Fox just secured a better victory than Jackson did last night, and Fox takes over that number 1 seed, and they'll have the home field advantage throughout the district tournament, as Jackson falls to the number 2, even being undefeated. And that's a close one there, 47.56 to 47.51. That's 0.05 of a point separating them, and that's just unbelievable, coming down to that close. Probably the closest spread we've seen in a top 1 and 2 matchup since this point system was introduced. So Jackson just losing out on that top spot in the last game, 0.05 of a point separating them and Fox. Segment with the 3 seed, Poplar Bluff with the 4th, and Oakville with the 5th. So that will match up Poplar Bluff hosting Oakville in the first round game. Poplar Bluff and Oakville in the first round game. Jackson will host Seckman in the semifinals of the Class 5 District 1. Jackson will host Seckman in that game. And the winner of Poplar Bluff and Oakville will take on Fox up at Arnold, where Fox High School is located. So Poplar Bluff, if they defeat Oakville, will travel up to Arnold to take on Fox in the other semifinal, and the bottom semifinal will be Jackson hosting Seckman. So we'll see what happens there in that Class 5 District 1. Should be interesting, especially with that Fox and Jackson potential matchup in the district championship. So those are your district tournaments going forward. And a little bit possible change that we'll see there in the Class 3 District 1 with Perryville taking on Sumner this afternoon. So with a victory, they'll likely, most certainly, leapfrog Dexter for that 5th seed. But we'll see what happens. If you're Dexter, you almost want to take that 6th seed. You've already got a win against Park Hills. You've got tape on them. You've got the experience against them just 2 weeks prior. And going up against Potosi on the road, haven't faced them, not a familiar opponent, so Dexter's got to like their chances, even falling back to the 6th seed, taking on Park Hills Central up there and Park Hills next week. So going to be some very interesting matchups next week. Typically the first weeks are pretty much the high seeds pretty much advanced, with the exception of maybe 1 or 2 each week or each year. With some upsets, but that could be one to watch out for. Dexter over Park Hills next week. So we'll see what happens there. And we're going to take another break and come back with this week's state rankings. We'll come back with those coming up in the final regular season state rankings for the state of Missouri in high school football. Coming up.
At Ag Explore, we're farmers too. So we know that farming's never been a 9-to-5 job. Just like the farmer, we work overtime to bring you whatever it takes. Solutions like InZone help you retain 47% more nitrogen, with an overall average increase of 12 bushels per acre. Imagine what InZone can do for you. Ag Explore.
And now let's take a look at those state rankings for the state of Missouri coming into this week. These do not reflect last night's game, but this is the final regular season poll in Missouri Class 1. I think they might have one more poll coming up this next week, heading into districts. So, but either way, coming into week 9, the poll, Hayti once again on top, number 1 in the state in Class 1 at 8-0. Undefeated, certainly the most probably dominant team in the state in Class 1, and looking to not only a district championship but potentially a state championship from the Hayti Indians. So that's a very rare feat for a Southeast Missouri team to win a state championship in high school football, and we could see some history this year from the Hayti Indians. Hopefully they'll fare well going forward, and they look to get started with their district tournament play this next week. Hayti at number 1, 2 Fayette, 3 East Buchanan, 4 Marceline, 5 Pierce City, 6 Western, 7 Valley Catholic out of St. Genevieve, 8 Lincoln, 9 Cass Midway, and 10 Milan. And taking a look at Class 2, Lamar on top at 8-0, but actually secured a loss last night to Class 3 Cassville. So the longest winning streak in the country. Lamar, I think it was above 50, approaching 60 straight games. I think they were just a few victories away from 60 straight wins, which is the longest winning streak in the country. Came to an end last night with a 24-21 loss to Cassville, who is a ranked Class 3 team, who's undefeated as well. So Lamar's not going to get docked any points. They don't even... they won't really hurt themselves. They're still on top in their district at number 1, but just historical loss last night for Lamar. And it's probably certain that they won't lose that top ranking, even losing to an undefeated and Class 3 state-ranked Cassville. But we'll see a loss in Lamar's column going forward. That's pretty unbelievable. But that longest winning streak in the country comes to an end last night. 2 Blair Oaks, 3 Lathrop, 4 Lutheran North, 5 Lawson, 6 Monroe City, 7 Macon, 8 Clark County, 9 Ava, and 10 Lexington. And I was thinking maybe Charleston might be able to sneak into those rankings, but just a quiet Charleston Blue Jays team this year, but also dangerous, so look out for the Blue Jays. And in Class 3 state rankings, Odessa at number 1, Trinity Catholic at number 2, 3 Cardinal Ritter, 4 Maryville, 5 Cassville, 6 Mount Vernon, 7 St. Clair, 8 Southern Boone, 9 Springfield Catholic, and 10 the Kennet Indians sneak into the top 10 this week, coming in with a 7-1 with a win last night, go to 8-1 on the year. So the Kennet Indians sneak into the top 10. I thought they had a really good shot at it, especially if they finished the season undefeated in Missouri, which they have, and they get into number 10 this week in Class 3, and that's a pretty rare feat there, Kennet being in the top 10 in the state rankings. We might not have seen that in quite some time. Maybe going back about 2 to 3 years when they had a good run as well. But Kennet in the top 10 at number 10 this week. And in Class 4, Webb City and undefeated at 8-0. They go to 9-0 last night and undefeated at number 1. 2 Ladue, 3 Kearney, 4 West Plains, 5 Platte County, 6 Country Days, 7 Camden, 8 Smithville, 9 Excelsior Springs, and 10 St. Francis Borgia. So none of our local teams there in Class 4. And, West Plains out west in that Class 4 District 1, but pretty far out west there. And in Class 5, Staley on top at number 1, 2 North Kansas City, 3 Vianney, 4 Carthage, 5 Fort Zumwalt North, 6 the local Jackson Indians remain at number 6 in this week's poll, 7 Raytown, 8 Fox, 9 Timberland, and 10 Lebanon. And as you see there, Jackson and Fox share the same district in Class 5, District 1, and they're both state ranked, and could be an interesting matchup there for a potential district championship between those two. So we'll be looking forward to that potentially in a few weeks. And those are your state rankings for this week, and we're seeing some local teams making their ways into those polls. Hayti at number 1 in Class 1. Thought Charleston might have a chance into that, but Charleston not a really reputable program statewide that are in there every year, so it's really hard if you're a team that's kind of put together a season by its in 1 year by itself to get into those rankings. You got to have a big victory over certainly a larger school opponent that really grabs the sports writers' attention. So Charleston might end up in the final poll for the year if they do well. Stood out the 3 or 4 teams that are state ranked having fine seasons, so we'll see what happens going forward, entering into district play. And we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to give you our broadcast schedule remaining going forward and some options we may do for district tournament play, and give you a little heads up on what's happening on the college and national scene as well. So we'll take a quick break and be right back.
When you connect with high-speed internet from New Wave Communications, you unlock all kinds of possibilities. More gaming, more streaming and viewing, more ways to keep in touch, more ways to learn. And best of all, adding New Wave internet to your current television package won't cost a lot more thanks to New Wave's bundle discounts. In fact, if you're paying another provider for internet, switching to New Wave will probably save you money. Call or go to newwavecom.com to find more ways to bundle and save.
And welcome back, and let's take a look at our broadcast schedule for the remainder of the year. We've got a couple picket games as we've wrapped up the regular season for Missouri high school football. We've got 2 more regular season Arkansas matchups coming up this next week. October 26th, we've got Newport at Piggott. That's going to be a big 3A3 conference matchup for the Mohawks, hosting the Newport Greyhounds, and we will bring that to you live here on Channel 21 next week Also on the web at yhctv.com and Facebook Live. All 3 platforms there, and even our YouTube page as well. So look forward to that. Newport at Piggott next Friday night, October 26th, right here on Channel 21, yhctv.com, and Facebook Live. We're going to bring you the Piggott Mohawks live here on YHC. And then next Thursday night, it'll be a Thursday game on November 1st, will be the Corning Bobcats and the Piggott Mohawks in the Rice Bowl. The annual Rice Bowl is at Parker Field and Piggott this year. And we'll also bring that live to you here on YHC, yhctv.com, and Facebook Live as well. So look forward to that matchup between Corning and Piggott next Thursday night at Parker Field in Piggott. We'll be looking forward to bringing you those broadcasts this coming Friday and the following Thursday night, the 26th and November 1st, in Piggott Mohawk football. And we will bring some district tournament games. Depending on what happens, we'll see Kennett and potentially Dexter in the mix. We'll see what happens, but Kennett's going to be hosting all their games, so we might potentially bring their semifinal and final games. We'll see what happens, but they're going to be hosting throughout the district tournament, so we're not going to host the Kennett-Doniphan game. That's likely going to be pretty lopsided there. And we might bring you the Kennett semifinal game and potential Kennett championship game, which will all be at there at Metz Cherry Stadium in Kennett. So we'll see if we can potentially bring that to you for Kenny and Indian football going forward. And depending on what teams do, we might do some state tournament games as well. So we'll just have to let it play out and see what happens. So there you go. And we're going to wrap up the day today, but we want to give a little shout out to our local college teams today, as SEMO is going to host a big time game today. They are hosting Jacksonville State in the Ohio Valley Conference. Big game for SEMO today. Let's see when that game is. It's at actually the game's getting underway and is taking on Jacksonville State, and it's at SEMO today with a 1 o'clock start. 1 o'clock start against Jacksonville State, and Jacksonville State 14.5 point favorites. That game's on ESPN Plus if you got the ESPN Plus subscription. SEMO is at 4-2 on the year. Jacksonville State at 5-1. SEMO put together a pretty good year this year, and hopefully they can get an upset victory over the Jacksonville State. I think Jacksonville State's highly ranked in the country in college football subdivision. So big game for the Redhawks later on today. And take a look at our local Arkansas State Red Wolves, and they have got they will not play today. They actually played Thursday night and got a big victory over Georgia State, 51-35. Arkansas State Red Wolves over Georgia State. And taking a look at the standings, Arkansas State in the Sun Belt West Conference, Western Division, they are at 1-2 in conference play, and they are behind Louisiana Lafayette, who is at 1-1. So there you go. And see, let's take a look at SEMO's. Let's take a look at SEMO's Ohio Valley Conference standing. They are in 4th place behind Eastern Kentucky. They're both at 2-1, them and Eastern Kentucky. And 2-1 in the conference. Jacksonville State's an undefeated 4-0, and also Murray State's an undefeated 3-0. So big win for SEMO would put them pretty much at top of the Ohio Valley Conference. So good luck to the Redhawks today against highly talented Jacksonville State football team. And we're going to go ahead and wrap it up for today, and we appreciate you for tuning in as always, and we'll look forward to see you right back here with us next week for another roundtable. We'll be having some district tournament games to talk about next week, and also the Piggott-Newport game coming off of that next week for that 3A3 conference game that we'll bring live here on YHC next Friday night. So going to wrap it up for today, and wish you have a great weekend. Take care, everyone.